Why, hello there. Welcome to this video. I am here to talk about Biden. But first, this is my third ever politics show here on YouTube. My name is Leah. Nice to meet you. I'm a new progressive YouTuber. I'm going to be doing a Wednesday and a Saturday show every week. And that's just going to be me covering what I think is the important stories and stuff like that, you know, the big news and all that great stuff. And as time goes on, I would like to do more. I would like to cover more stories, more than just the big stuff. But right now, all I have time for, because I work a full-time job, is doing like a Wednesday and Saturday show. But we're going to jump right into this first segment. I have like two segments for you today because I think they're probably going to end up being kind of lengthy. I'm not exactly sure. This one is definitely going to be lengthy for sure because I have like 5 clips lined up for you and I don't really want to rely on clips. So there's going to be a lot of discussion between the clips. And yeah, we're going to get right into it. Basically, we are talking about Biden today and we're talking about his mental state since the debate. Maybe you watched the debate. Maybe you did not. I'm not sure. I have no idea what you did or did not do. I watched it on my second monitor while I was playing some video games, and I feel like I went into a fugue state while watching it because it was probably one of the most stressful moments I've experienced over the past like 3 or 4 years, to be totally honest with you. For me, the reason why it was so stressful is I just sort of had this moment of like, oh, this is where Biden is now. This is Biden now. Like, this is Biden. And like, because, you know, he had the State of the Union speech, which was actually a lot stronger than people were expecting. And it kind of like calmed people's fears. People are like, oh, you know, he's still got it. He's still got the sauce. He's still with it. He's still, you know, got energy and passion and stuff like that. But then we saw the debate and we were like, oh no. Maybe the you know, the State of the Union speech was a one-off and this is Biden now. I think the debate kind of had a big effect on the narrative. Obviously, like there have been a lot of people talking about this everywhere Biden goes. He's asked about whether he's staying in the campaign or not, whether he's going to drop out of his campaign or not. And it's a big story. There's a lot going on. What I want to do today is I want to kind of outline some key moments since the debate that kind of help illustrate the fact that like Biden has not calmed anyone's fear. He has not gotten on a stage and been like, look, like the State of the Union speech. He has not been able to do that. And the thing about that is that I think he's really, really trying. Okay. And like, I don't know, like I have seen some clips of him at like rallies and stuff where he seems to have some good energy and seems to be able to, you know, string some sentences together. But even then, it kind of seems like he's kind of running at the edge of his capabilities, you know, and like it kind of seems like a train about to derail itself, you know, like it's kind of like shaky on the tracks kind of thing. That's sort of how it comes off to me. And I'll be honest, now that I went back and I watched the State of the Union speech, gave me the same exact feeling. Like, oh, this is like Joe Biden shaky on the tracks. Like he's probably so hopped up on stimulants and caffeine or whatever else he's hopped up on. Who knows? And honestly, we can't rely on someone who needs to be like medicated or whatever to get through a debate performance or a speech or whatever to, you know, present their case to the American people and whatnot. That's just not what we want from a president. We want someone who's strong at a moment's notice. They can be called upon to address the nation, to do whatever, to talk to leaders, to remember people's names, to get things right. And so, yeah, we're going to get right into the clips because I feel like the clips are what illustrate this narrative and like help people understand like what's really going on here. And it's that like people, we want to take the course of least resistance, right? Like as a political movement or whatever, like there are a lot of different groups of people involved here, right? But like we have the people on the left as a whole, we want to not have Trump, right? We don't want Trump. So like everyone is united in that, you know, in that sense. But what's not united is like how we're going to get there. Like how are we going to beat Trump in November? That's the big question. How are we going to do that? And everyone seems to have a different answer to that question. But like if the answer was Biden, if people thought he was the answer, these questions would not be happening. This conversation would not be happening. Like if he could calm fears, this conversation would not be happening. Okay, but let me stop rambling for 1 second and we're going to go look at these clips. I'm probably going to have some stuff to say about them, you know, as we go, but we're going to start out. First clip is the debate. All right, so here we are, and I'm going to be playing like sort of lengthy sections of clips because I want you to get this. I want you to see the full picture. Like sometimes he does make sense. Like sometimes his points do make sense, but there's more to it than that. Okay, there's a lot going on here, and you need to see the full context of these clips, I think.
The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a four-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our health care system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
Okay, so I feel like out of almost all the moments in the debate, that was the wake-up call moment for a lot of people. That was the moment where everyone saw Biden do that, and they were like, oh no, oh no. He got completely lost there. He completely forgot what he was talking about. He had no idea how to finish his point. And then he ended with, we beat Medicare. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And he actually made that same mistake multiple times. I saw him where he said the same thing in a different setting. I can't remember exactly when or where it was, but he said the same thing about like beating Medicare, and then he like quickly corrected himself. And it's like, why is that in your brain? Like, what's going on? The reason why I started with Trump in that clip and then had it transition to Biden is because I wanted you to see like the difference between like where they're both at in terms of like ability to speak. Like, they are both old men, but age is only slightly indicative of like their ability to speak and like give speeches and stuff like that. Like, you look at Bernie Sanders, and his ability to speak is really, really good. Like, he's still very with it. And like, that's just the way it is sometimes, you know, it is the way it is. I wanted you to see that contrast. So that was like the big wake up moment for a lot of Democrats. I feel like for a lot of people, they saw the debate performance, they saw especially that moment, and it was just like pants on fire. Holy crap, this is insane. This is not gonna work. We're not gonna be able to beat Trump with this guy. It's just like, if any voter looked at these two, they're gonna pick the one who can put sentences together, even if he's like off his rocker crazy telling lies. Like, they're just going to go with the one that seems able to walk and talk and speak and stuff. And so then it kind of all got, you know, put on Biden, and it's like, look, man, you need to prove that you can do this or step aside. And that was sort of like the immediate reaction to the debate for a lot of people, was like, we need to see that this was a one-off situation and try to get over it, even though easily one of the worst debates in the history of politics or whatever. You know, it's yeah. But essentially the spotlight got put on Biden, and it was kind of like, okay, do some interviews, do some press conferences, just, you know, reassure the American people that everything is okay and that you're good and you can do this. So here's Biden talking with George to reassure us that he is with it, that he's so with it.
These are about the future, not the past. They're about tomorrow, not yesterday. And the question on so many people's minds right now is, can you serve effectively for the next 4 years?
George, I'm the guy that put NATO together, the future. No one thought I could expand it. I'm the guy that shut Putin down. No one thought could happen. I'm the guy that put together the South Pacific Initiative with AUKUS. I'm the guy that got 50 nations not only in Europe, outside of Europe as well, to help Ukraine. I'm the guy that got Japanese to expand their budget. So I mean, and for example, when I decided we used to have 40% of the computer chip in it. We invented the chip, that little chip, the computer chip. It's in everything from cell phone to weapons. And so we used to have 40%, we're down to virtually nothing. So I get in the plane against the advice of everybody, and I fly to South Korea. I convinced them to invest in the United States billions of dollars. Now we have tens of billions of dollars being invested in the United States, making us back in a position where we're going to own that industry again. We have, I mean, I just, anyway, I don't want to take too much credit. I have a great staff.
But I guess my point is all that takes a toll. Do you have the mental and physical capacity to do it for another 4 years?
I believe so. I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I did. Look, I'm running again because I think I understand best what has to be done to take this nation to a completely new level. We're on our way. We're on our way. And look, the decision recently made by the Supreme Court on immunity,
Okay, so the reason why I picked that clip from this interview is because, like, he was essentially asked, like, this is the moment. Here it is, Biden. Reassure us. Do it. And, like, does anybody really understand what he was talking about there? Like, if you're really into politics and you follow things very closely, then you can recognize the things that he's talking about there. But, like, the common voter, the everyday, like, who is he talking to? Like, well, who does he think knows what the heck he's talking about right there? Like, the stuff with NATO, and, like, I saw this point made by someone else, and it's such a good point. Like, the stuff with NATO, the stuff with, like, all these, like, intricate, like, the Japanese increasing their budget. What if you ask any American person whether they care about that, the answer is no, they don't care about that. They care about, like, the homeless people that are suffering in the country. They care about, like, you know, people that are unable to get medical care because they don't have health insurance. They're worried about other things. They're worried about buying groceries. They're worried about, like, you know, not having enough money to live. And you've got Biden trying to reassure people that he's with it 5,000, that he's ready to go. And he's just talking about random foreign leader stuff. And, you know, the computer chip thing is a little more like, okay, yeah, that's a little more important. But, like, the way he represented that point was atrocious. Like, he was not able to put forward a case that said, like, this is why I'm amazing. And the thing is that he has a good record in terms of domestic policy. His foreign policy, horrid, horrible, the worst, awful, terrible. But especially when in relation to Israel and stuff like that, like, that's what we're talking about when we say his foreign policy is horrible, right? Like, we understand the nuance there. But anyway, domestically, though, he has had a lot of good policy. He has done some good stuff, and, you know, not all of it has gotten through. Like, the student loan stuff has been blocked completely, essentially, the student loan forgiveness. But, like, he has a good record, a strong record. And if he were with it, if he were able to speak, if he were able to make a case for himself, then he has the ammunition. Like, he has the stuff, the he has the source material. Like, he has everything that he needs. He has everything that he needs to make a case for himself. And he's over here rambling about NATO and, like, just not really making sense. And then he immediately shifts to, like, oh, look at what the Supreme Court's doing. Look at all these conservatives. Everyone on the right is doing all this crazy stuff, which is true. But, like, you can't run a campaign based on fear of the other side. Like, we saw with Hillary that was very iffy. You know, sometimes it seems like maybe that can kind of motivate voters. But I think for a lot of people, being just terrified does not motivate people to vote. It motivates people to just, like, freeze up and be scared and, like, not know what to do and stuff like that. You want people to feel confident that they know what to do. And okay, so yeah, so the interview was just, like, that was not good. Like, that is his energy level. He sounds like he's got, like, 1 million gallons of phlegm in his throat, which is just, like, it's actually really hard to listen to. I'm not gonna lie, like this really guttural old man voice is just like really unpleasant in general. And that's another thing, is that like he's lost all of his charisma. Even when he strings together a sentence that is good and like makes sense, it doesn't make you feel like anything. You don't care at all, which is like, it's just okay. So that was 2 weeks ago. A week after the debate, Biden was steadfast. I'm staying in. Most people were kind of like, like commentators and stuff, like people in the news media and stuff, were definitely questioning him. But politically, like in the politics world and stuff like that, like, senators and stuff like that, most people were not calling for him to step aside at this point. It was mostly like pundits and stuff like that, like commentators that were asking for Biden to step aside and allow someone else to run. But this interview was like, oh my gosh, it did not reassure anyone. It did not reassure anyone at all. But it was still a week out from the debate. And so like people were like, is this the new normal? We're unsure, because at this point we only had 2 data points. So then Biden had a kind of like a dual thing in one day, where it was like a NATO thing, but it was also like a press conference. And I'm sure you've all heard about this. At the NATO thing, he called Zelensky Putin, which he caught it like right after. So like, I'm not even gonna play the clip on that one. Like, that's really bad. But I mean, that one is almost sort of understandable, because like you're thinking, like he even said, oh, I'm thinking so much about Putin. Okay, I'll give him a pass on that one. But then later that day at a press conference, to specifically ease concerns about his mental state and his ability to run for office, here we go.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there. Number one, the fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again.
Like, I feel like that clip illustrates the thing pretty well. He had a gaffe. He didn't catch it at all. And then he also has been doing this thing lately. Like, you know how people have like little things that they do in their speech to like buy for time or whatever, like they'll go like or they'll say like a lot, or they'll go and so and they'll like kind of delay using verbal whatevers. Biden does that, but he also does it when he forgets what he's talking about to try to like recenter himself, I think. So one thing he says a lot is anyway, and another thing he says a lot is look. And so like he'll just be talking and he'll just stop and go look, like he's about to make some really prescient point. And I think it kind of like, it's like a cover up for when he completely loses track of what he's talking about, to try to make it seem like he does know what he's talking about, but he's just trying to out of this big, I just slapped my mic. He just, out of all of this stuff going on, he's trying to center in on the important core message. And then the anyway thing is really bad, because it's not even like, it's not like the look thing where it seems like a sort of like a device used for speech. It's just like him talking and he just goes anyway, and it's like my grandpa does that. Like, he just stops talking. He'll just be like in the middle of a point, just go anyway, and just stop talking. Like, no, we do not need that. And then also the guttural, like, can barely get tone out of his voice. Like, he just sounds like he's gargling like gallons of mucus within his esophagus. And he was asked about that gaffe later in the press conference, because like Trump was already making fun of him over it. And so the press corps was like, hey, Trump's already making fun of you. Do you have any response to him about that? And Biden's only response was, listen to him. So like, I think his point about that was like, pay attention to what Trump is saying, because he says a lot of unhinged stuff. And if you pay attention to that, you realize like you might not want to vote for that guy to be president. But like, just being like, listen to him, like, it's not, you're not doing it, man. That's not making the point well. And that's, he just like, he does not seem to know how to do the old man thing in a really charming way, which would be his only thing that he could do. And he sort of did in 2020, sort of like the charming old man guy, but like, he's just not that anymore. All right, so we're moving the timeline up and we're essentially present now. So that was like, that press conference was 8 days ago. So now the clips that I have for you are for about 4 days ago. And as you may have heard, Biden got COVID again, for which this is actually really important. This is his 3rd time getting COVID. 3rd time in 4 years. In the past, actually, I think it's like 2 years. In the past 2 years, I think it's been like 3 times. And that's so bad. First of all, he's been traveling nonstop to get like these appearances, to try to like go to rallies or whatever, do the stuff. He's been going to a lot of stuff, NATO, whatever. And that's not good. That one, he might have been a vector for COVID, but two, he's an old guy. He's so old that like you cannot be getting COVID like multiple times in a couple years. You know, like that's just not good for. I'm sure he's vaxxed. I'm sure he's boosted, but still, like I don't think that he should be risking it for the biscuit. And like honestly, that's one of the things that I think is probably the least talked about thing, is just that like it's not safe for him to be doing this job in a physical, like even for like Trump, you know, like I think this should be a serious concern. Like I don't know why people don't think about this or talk about this. Like I understand they have Secret Service, they have Air Force One, they have all the amenities in the world, they have the best doctors in the world following them around. But like I feel like if I were a doctor and I saw like a super old guy, I would be like, hey, you know, by traveling a lot, you're exposing yourself to a ton of diseases that could potentially just kill you outright. So, and with your being older, weaker immune system, that kind of stuff, like that's just not, I don't feel like that's like good, you know, but that's like besides the point. Like, I just wanted to talk about the COVID thing because I feel like, you know, that can pile on to this conversation as well, as, you know, he's having trouble with a lot of these appearances, but also like he's getting sick frequently. And if this is an issue for him where like he's just susceptible to COVID like this, we can't have a president who's got COVID all the time. And like at his age, I mean, like, you know, I want him to recover. I want him to get through this. But like, what if he doesn't recover? You know, we do not want to be seriously considering whether a president is going to die in office, do we? Like, we do not want to be having this conversation like, oh, you know, maybe he'll get through it. Maybe. We want like a for sure he's going to get through it. He's got the best doctors in the world. He should be getting through it kind of thing. But he's just old. Okay, and so this is an interview with a guy that I don't even really know. What Complex Speedy Mormon? I don't even know who this guy is, but I saw a little bit of this interview and I haven't seen many other people report about it. It was about 4 days ago, and we're going to talk about this, the Lester Holt interview, and then we're going to wrap up with some thoughts and talk about, like, you know, some other things that I recently saw. And so we're going to keep going a little bit. This is a long segment. I know, but we are going to move on with this Speedy dude or whatever. I have to mention, like, the mucus. I can't get over the mucus. My God, it sounds so bad. It's really bad. Like, he's just hard to listen to. Like, I hate to be like that, but that's part of charisma. Like, listening to this young guy talk, like, can you just, like, the contrast is painful. Like, Biden is like, I have to, like, turn up the volume. Like, every time we have these clips, I'm turning up the volume. I, like, barely hear what Biden is talking about through all this mucus and stuff. And he's just, like, almost incoherent. And then you have, like, this guy who's like, please tell me what you are thinking. And, oh, boy.
On the cost.
Also, I just want to say, like, his makeup, like, what is going on here? Why at the debate he looked like almost dead? He was like so pale and stuff. Like, since then they've been like really caking on the makeup on Joe. And like he had that one interview, he was like super bronzered up for the George interview. And then like, look at this, like he's got like no makeup like here. I think this is because he's sick. Like, I think he's still sick. Like, they mentioned, like, during the debate, he had a cold or whatever. And, like, now he's got COVID. I think he's been sick for, like, a month at least. Like, I think he's just kind of, like, stuck in an illness, essentially. And so, like, they put the makeup, like, all around his nose and mouth, but not around here because he's, like, constantly, like, wiping there with a handkerchief or whatever. And it's just, like, it doesn't really match his skin tone because he's so, like, he's so red and like, it's just like there's so much rosy pigment here from him, like being irritated and stuff like that. And then this is just like clay colored right up here. It's just, I don't mean to harp on like this too much because like he probably doesn't even care or whatever, but like that's just like, gosh, I just like, I get really grossed out looking at these old people like caked on with makeup like all over the place. Like, it actually doesn't really make him look any better, to be honest. So I mean, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Of things that matter to people. Corporate greed has increased.
Okay, let me back up a little bit. Okay, kind of hard to listen to, but we got through that little segment there. And it just like the rambling stuff, but like he didn't really bring up any policy there. Like he just kind of rambled about he was poor when he grew up, which is like, Joe, if you're saying that, you know, poor people, like this has been an issue for a long time, what are you going to do to actually fix it? And he kind of just rambles and rambles. Like he's saying prices are coming down in certain areas and whatever and stuff, but he didn't really give a lot of like, this is exactly what I'm doing and this is the effect it'll have. And then he cited, you know, Nobel laureate economists or whatever, but like no one really cares about that because yes, prices have gone up. And yes, that is corporate greed. A lot of that is greedflation. It's like companies just deciding they want to make more money, so they just raise their prices. That happens all the time, and that's a big issue. But like, what is he doing to stop that? Like, I mean, he's doing some stuff to work with inflation, and he has worked with inflation. But like, it's just like that answer does not give you confidence, you know? Like, and yes, he does have a super strong economy in terms of like numbers or like unemployment and stuff like that. Like, yes, cool. Dow is up, whatever. Like, if I'm just some average American watching this, I do not feel confident that he has the answers to the problems of like high gas prices, groceries being insanely expensive, rent being insanely expensive. Like, it just does not seem like he has the answers. Sorry, I just punched my desk. Okay, and then the last clip we are going to look at here is the Lester Holt interview. Here we go.
Before this violent turn of events over the weekend, the talk, as you know, was about you and your future, if you should stay in the race. Your allies, James Clyburn, Nancy Pelosi, have kind of put it out there that they're waiting for your decision, giving you time to make your decision. What I hear from you is that you made your decision. Are you still comfortable in that decision? Has anything changed in the last several days?
No.
What do you make of people like Nancy Pelosi, though, who seem to be of the opinion that there is a window for you to make this choice? What aren't they getting?
Look, we knew this was going to be a close race from the moment he announced. The idea that we are in a situation where, if you look at all the polling data shows a lot of different things, but there's no wide gap between us. It's essentially a toss-up race. And I think one of the arguments that get made, you have the most successful presidency of any president in modern history, maybe since Franklin Roosevelt. Passed more major legislation no one thought could get done. We're able to put together consensus. We're able to unite NATO. We're able to deal with foreign policy. Why don't you just decide to rest on those laurels? And the answer is because the job's not finished.
Do you feel like you've weathered the storm on this issue of whether you should be on the ticket or not?
Look, 14 million people voted for me to be the nominee in the Democratic Party, okay? I listened to them.
In your last TV interview, you were asked if you had watched the debate, and your answer was, I don't think so, no. Have you since seen it?
I've seen pieces of it. I've not watched the whole debate.
And the reason I ask, because I guess the question is, are you all on the same page? Are you seeing what they saw, which was moments of, frankly, that appeared to be, you appeared to be confused?
Lester, look, why don't you guys ever talk about the 28 lies he told? Where are you on this? Why didn't the press ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed he lied in that debate. I had a bad, bad night. I wasn't feeling well at all. And I had been, without it making it, I screwed up. But
I just asked the question because the idea that you may or may not have seen what some of these other folks have seen, you're not on the same...
I'd have to see, I was there. I'd have to see it, I was there. And by the way, seriously, you won't answer the question, but why didn't the press talk about all the lies he told?
Well,
I haven't heard anything about that.
We have reported many of the issues that came up during that debate.
No, you haven't.
We'll provide you with them.
God love you.
Okay. President Obama put out a statement after the debate, but should he and Michelle Obama be doing more to express their confidence?
All right, so I picked clips from the interviews that were specifically not picked because they were like the worst gaffes or whatever. I just feel like I wanted to show you clips of Biden as he is now. And that was the Lester Holt interview, part of it, at least, obviously. And, it continues on. And obviously, Biden's frustrated at this point that people keep asking him over and over and over and over if he's dropping out of the race, even though he said probably 100 times that he's not dropping out of the race. So we've been looking at these clips, right? And concerns have only grown as time has gone on. Like, people have been kind of mounting pressure against Biden, and that pressure has not let up at all. Actually, even with the assassination attempt on former President Trump, the pressure has not let up. There are actually more Democrats since the assassination that have come out and asking Biden to resign, to step aside from his campaign reelection thingy, whatever. Not resign from the presidency, resign from his campaign, whatever, to allow someone else like Kamala to run in his stead. But just think about that. An assassination attempt on a former president that almost killed him. Like, it was almost the end of Donald Trump right there, right? Like, that was a big deal, big news, huge news, massive news. And like, you would think that like if Biden were able to get the narrative off of him and kind of squash that narrative permanently, like that would be totally possible for someone who's competent, who's someone who's with it, because you know, you have the assassination attempt, you come out, you speak, you're strong, you're a leader, you do the thing, and then all of a sudden that debate performance just like fades away into the night. Like, people just don't think about it anymore. But that's not what happened. Everyone keeps getting reminded of that debate performance. It's like PTSD for the country, because every time he talks in an interview, he's unable to seem like a different Biden. He is this Biden now. This is Biden now. He is this old, rambly, barely coherent guy. And sure, maybe he understands the nuts and bolts of the job and he can like run the office of the president. But I just do not think that he has the sauce. I don't think that he has the capabilities to run for another 4 years. And a lot of people feel the same way. Now, I will say, and I probably should make, this would be a whole segment in and of itself if I had the time to do it, but I saw the video about AOC finally coming forward and AOC finally saying why she does not support, or why she is supporting Biden, why she doesn't want him to step aside and stuff like that. And essentially it's because the people that she's hearing talk about this are the donors. The donors are the ones pants on fire, screaming, we can't win, blah, 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 backing away, running, whatever. And she kind of views this as like, well, if the donors are acting this way, maybe that's not the will of the voters. And maybe this is all just being, you know, kind of pushed by donors and they don't really know what they're doing. She also brings up a very good point that like, if this were to, you know, like if Biden were to step aside, someone were to come forward, the Republicans are going to fight it because they know that Biden is their best chance at winning with Trump, because Biden's such a weak candidate. They saw the debate too. They understand how weak Biden is. And so they're excited that Biden's running because they feel like this is their best chance. If Biden were to step aside, I think they've already set up legal challenges to try to fight that if that were to happen. And the potential of that going to the Supreme Court, with the Supreme Court in the current state that it's in, is really troubling, to say the least, because like obviously this is like a radical Supreme Court. Like, they're like extremists, just making crap up as they go. Like, seriously, like this Supreme Court has lost all of its authority, not actually, unfortunately, but like all of its like symbolic authority or whatever. Like, people do not respect this court. It's a sham court. But yeah, I can understand why AOC would be concerned about the Supreme Court having a ruling on like whether Joe Biden can step aside or not, and then that eating into the campaign, and then that just being like, you know, like, oh my gosh, the whole campaign would be about how Biden is unable to run and how there's a Supreme Court case and all that stuff. That would be such bad press. I understand that. And then, you know, the other point that AOC had, which is another good point, is that like early voting starts like a month after the convention. So like, we really don't have as much time as we think we have. So like, that's why all of these conversations are happening right now, and why this is like a do or die moment. Like, we need to know whether Biden is staying in the race or not, because if he's staying in, we need to just suck it up, buttercup, and vote for the corpse. Like, we need to do it. But if he's stepping aside and there's someone else being put in his stead, we need to start this campaign ASAP, and we need to figure out how we're going to do this. Like, are we going to have a real quick primary? Is there going to be like some sort of like right before we have the general, we're going to have like a primary, or are we going to try to like do a primary right now before the convention? Or is the convention just going to do something with delegates or something? Or like what's going on here? Because like, if it's Kamala, then like, you know, technically she got the votes too because she's on the ticket with Biden. But if it's not Kamala, then they didn't win a primary. So like, what are we doing here, right? Like, what's going on? And it's just like, there's a lot to talk about. Like, there is a lot to talk about. And if the people behind the scenes haven't really thought this through entirely, then that's not a good thing either. Like, we need to have a plan set up. Like, personally, for me, I think the best case scenario is that Biden steps aside and that we have someone else run, like Kamala or just someone else, literally anyone else. Like, I don't claim to be an expert at knowing who would be the best person to run, but I do think that Biden at this point has almost no chance of winning. If we look at the polling from 2020 and stuff like that, Biden won. I think he was up by 10 points, won by 4 points or something like that. So he's like up by like 2 points in some polls and down by like 2 or 3 points in other polls. And it's just like kind of all over the place. And like he said in one of these interviews, yes, it is kind of like a toss-up race if you look at the polling. But like I've said this before, that should not be the case. You should not be a toss-up between a convicted felon, pedophile, like riot inciter. Like this dude tried to overthrow the US government and you are neck and neck with him, my guy. That says something. Like you should he keeps saying that like unless he's getting obliterated in the polls, he's not going to drop out. And it's like, well, you should consider the fact that like you are not running against a normal presidential candidate. Like this isn't a toss-up between you and Joe Schmo Republican. Like this is a toss-up between you and like Hitler 2.0. Now I've almost been recording for an hour, which is crazy. I actually did not expect this segment to be this long, but it's one of 2 segments today, so it's going to be long, and that's just the way it is. But yeah, I wanted to kind of go through the timeline here. Like this is obviously just who Biden is now. He's not going to have more of those State of the Union moments like where he's really strong and kind of like I got emotional listening to that State of the Union speech where it was like, wow, he's still got the sauce, you know? But no. He is out of sauce. He is absolutely, completely out of sauce, and they are not stocking more of that stuff. It is permanently discontinued. So yeah, I think that honestly, I mean, he should have stepped aside a week after the debate performance when he was unable to show that he was with it or whatever. I think at this point, if he were to step aside right now, there would still be time to do something to whatever. And honestly, like if I'm being totally honest with you, I think it would create a lot of excitement because if you look at polling from before the campaign and election cycle began and stuff, like before people like bunkered down, most everyone was kind of like, I don't want Trump, I don't want Biden. And the only reason why people are so dead set on it now, like why people are bunkering down, is because everyone's scared of this election. This is a big election. There's a lot riding on this election. I mean, climate change is riding on this election. Like this is potentially apocalyptic, like the decision that we are making this November. You know, that's really scary. And like both sides are viewing it that way. Like from the left, it's actually apocalyptic because like, you know, Trump's an authoritarian and he's going to be essentially a dictator and he's going to careen us towards climate catastrophe, all sorts of wonderful things that will destroy our nation and the world. But on the right, they do view this as also an existential threat to America. They think that the woke liberal whatevers, if Trump loses, you know, it's game over for him forever. The MAGA movement's dead in the water. And all this political energy that they built up over the past like 10 years is just going to be like, just like who knows what's going to happen with that? Like, and obviously, and like the rhetoric that these Republicans have been using, like at the RNC and stuff, it's just, it's crazy. Like they are calling for the Republicans to act like completely, literally unhinged. So one guy literally said, if we lose in November, we need to be unhinged. What? What? But yeah, I'm gonna stop right here. This is gonna be the end of the segment. I appreciate you so much. If you watch this whole thing, thank you so much. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you think Biden should step aside? Do you think someone else should take his place? What do you think is going on here? Do you think we should run with Biden and just expect him to not make it the 4 years? Like, what are we doing here? Like, let me know what you think. I'm really curious. Leave a like on the video, please. That would help me out a bunch. If you would also subscribe, that would also help me out a bunch. I'm a really new YouTuber. I would love any support that you can provide. Trying to grow my channel and everything. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next segment, which is like my second segment, which is going to be significantly shorter than this one. I think I'm only going to have 2 segments for this show because this one is so long, honestly, but like it's fine because like this is the big news. This is what's happening right now. And there are some smaller stories that I would like to cover, but like I feel like I needed to make this video, so that's the video that I made, and that's the way it is. Anyway, I will catch you in the next one, and until then, do me a little itty bitty favor and drink yourself some stinking water. Well, not stinking water, probably like clean water. Drink yourself some water.